It is one of the most secure events in the world, yet terrorists still find a way to kill more than half of the world leaders with small bombs strategically placed in different locations, including presidents' cars. In the movie, London Has Fallen. The movie begins in Pakistan, where terrorist mastermind Amir Barkawi is said to be responsible for a bombing in Europe. He's throwing a wedding celebration for his daughter at his compound. Barkawi talks with two of his sons, praising the first one for a job well done. The son informs him about the need to discuss Major General Ramon, emphasizing that it can't wait. They discuss a German agent, a mole in one of their terrorist cells in Lebanon. Upon learning that the mole has been killed, Barkawi instructs his sons to be absolute in removing the threat, meaning they should eliminate the mole's family as well. As the celebration continues, an informant working as one of the waiters discreetly leaves a text message to the United States government, revealing Barkawi's location. The military, stationed in Nevada, launches a drone strike against the compound just as the informant makes his exit. The compound explodes, supposedly killing Barkawi and his family. 2 years later, President Benjamin Asher and his top Secret Service agent, Mike Banning, are jogging near the White House in Washington, followed by a security outfit in a vehicle. Benjamin asks Mike if he has picked a name for his child, and Mike jokingly suggests naming the baby Benjamin if it's a boy. The president questions if he's serious, and Mike replies that he's teasing, adding, if it's a girl, maybe. Mike returns home to his pregnant wife, Leah, and they discuss the nursery. Leah points out the 6 cameras he installed, suggesting it's too much. She promises to replace them with just one baby monitor. The scene shifts to Mike working on his laptop, trying to plan out his resignation letter. Back at the White House, the president receives an urgent phone call. Though the message is unknown, it's later revealed that Prime Minister James Wilson has passed away due to a heart attack. The White House contacts Mike, indicating he has something to attend to. Leah reassures him, saying it's okay, and her mother can come over to help her. In London, the Joint Security Committee holds a meeting to decide that James' funeral will take place on Thursday at 4 p.m. All world leaders, except the Russian president, are expected to attend. They plan to ensure the leader's protection and allow the funeral to proceed smoothly, giving James the ceremony he deserves. Secret Service Director Lynn Jacobs meets with President Benjamin. Benjamin asks why they seem so nervous. Lynn expresses her discomfort with last-minute, out-of-country trips and tries to convince the president not to go. Mike shows Benjamin the plans and the vehicles they will use for their journey, ensuring the president and his entourage are well protected. Mike meets with Vice President Alan Trumbull, who has just returned from vacation. As Mike prepares to leave for London, he says his goodbyes to his wife, who is due in 2 weeks. She tells him to do what he has to do, and she will be waiting for him. Before he leaves, he jokingly tells his unborn child to behave. The president, Mike, and Asher's staff, including Vice President Alan Trumbull and Secret Service Director Lynn Jacobs, travel to London to join all the other world leaders for Wilson's funeral. On the plane, Lynn agrees to be the godmother to Mike's unborn child. At 8:30 a.m., the box command of the Specialist Operations Directorate begins setting up and securing everything for the president. It's believed to be heavily secured and even called the most protected event on Earth. World leaders, including the Japanese Prime Minister, make their way to the funeral but encounter heavy traffic congestion on the bridge, making the president impatient. His driver explains that the traffic is due to the heavy security measures. At Westminster Abbey, the Italian Prime Minister, Antonio Gusto, excitedly tells his mistress about touring the Westminster Abbey. The French president arrives on his boat, followed by the US president and Mike. A supposed guard, checking for bombs, smartly attaches one to the Canadian Prime Minister's limo. As the vehicle moves a bit, it blows up. Barkawi mercenaries, disguised as royal guards and police officers, start opening fire on civilians and other world leaders. The female German chancellor is killed by 2 assassins at Buckingham Palace. The Japanese Prime Minister and his driver are killed on a bridge when 2 suicide bombers blow up both support spans, causing the bridge to fall into the river. Emergency support begins making their way to the scene. The Italian Prime Minister is killed with his mistress atop Westminster Abbey. The French president is killed in his boat when another suicide bomber sails a barge containing explosives close to the boat. At St. Paul's Cathedral, Mike takes Lynn and Benjamin to safety in a vehicle, shooting armed men in the street. Quickly, the terrorists start hitting London's landmarks, including Big Ben and the Tower Bridge over the River Thames, setting off explosives that kill even more people. The terrorists go after their vehicles with police motorbikes and cars, shooting at the Range Rover. The shootings continue, and Mike almost gets into an accident while Lynn screams frantically. Luckily, they lose the terrorists and escape in a chopper to safety. The news immediately starts to air, confirming that 5 world leaders have been killed. In Sanaa Yaman, Barkawi, now with a limp, receives information about the dead presidents. Barkawi seems satisfied, commenting, "We just changed the world." Soon, London is thrown into darkness. The news about the chaos and terrorism in London reaches Mike's wife in New York. She calls Mike, panicking when his number doesn't go through. The America's vice president meets with D.C. Mason, the White House deputy chief. D.C. informs him that all lines of communication have been compromised, and they haven't found a solution. They've sent a satellite to London to oversee the situation. Still in the chopper, Lynn says the burial was a trap, and she's sure the terrorism took years to plan. Suddenly, the terrorists launch Stinger ground-to-air missiles at the choppers, taking out the 2 security choppers before striking the presidential one. The presidential chopper crash lands, resulting in Lynn being fatally injured. Everything happening is watched by the America's vice president and the rest of the security team. Before Lynn dies, she tells Mike to make those fuckers pay. Mike and Benjamin then go on the run, chased by more assassins on motorcycles. Barkawi sends a video message to the US, declaring that he's bringing the war to them. He tells Trumbull that he wants Benjamin, and when Trumbull says it's not possible, Barkawi warns them that every death afterward would be on Trumbull's hands. Mike and Benjamin acquire weapons from a policeman Mike had subdued earlier. They run into a tunnel, using tear gas to confuse the terrorists, and kill some of them. The duo walks on foot through one of the abandoned metro tunnels. As Mike and Benjamin run through the tunnels, Benjamin notes that the terrorists want him dead. If it comes down to it, he orders Mike to kill him, as he wouldn't want to be executed publicly. Reluctantly, Mike agrees. With the city on lockdown, Mike and Benjamin head to the home of MI6 agent Jacqueline Jax Marshall. Mike appears to know Jax well. Jax gets on her computer, where they listen to a message from the vice president confirming that they received Mike's message and are sending help. They learn that Barkawi is behind the whole plot. Now relaxed, Mike listens to a joke made by Benjamin's son. Benjamin tells Mike about how he supports his son and always teaches him the golden rule. On the security cameras, the 3 see several armed men arrive, supposedly the Delta team there to rescue Mike and Benjamin. However, Mike notices that the men are not sweating despite wearing heavy gear, and there's no way they could have gotten there that fast. They realize that the terrorists intercepted their message and are there to attack. Mike moves to the armory and picks up weapons, keeping the president in a safe location. The terrorists storm in and open fire. Mike shoots some of them and manages to kill all of them, with some help from President Benjamin. Mike and Benjamin then take a car and drive through the streets until they are again ambushed by more terrorists, leading to their car being rammed by a truck. Despite being dazed, Mike manages to shoot and kill one of the terrorists who tries to finish him off, but Benjamin is abducted by the rest of the terrorists, who then escape. The real Delta team arrives while Mike is stabbing one of the terrorists, asking for where Benjamin was taken to. The Delta team stops him, and they all prepare to go rescue the president. Benjamin is taken to a private location where Cameron is setting everything up for him to be publicly executed. When he sees Ben, he tells him to be thankful, as not all men get to witness their deaths by billions live. He punches Ben several times to make him suffer beforehand. Meanwhile, the Delta team and Mike have found their way to the location. Soon, Mike and the team open fire on the terrorists. Despite being warned not to take action, Mike goes ahead as he believes he can sort it out himself. The gunfight continues for a long while. The terrorists set up the cameras, but their power is cut. Cameron tells them to set up the emergency generator and continue the setup. Mark finds his way into the building and manages to incapacitate some of the men who had gone to set up the emergency generator. Cameron continues punching the president and tells him about the death of his sister. Mark continues to find his way into the room where the president is held hostage and shoots at the terrorists. They set up the camera and broadcast it to every network around the world, including places like Times Square. Cameron tells Ben to say some final words. As he speaks, Cameron continues to throw punches at the president's face. Most of the viewers begin to weep as Cameron readies his machete to decapitate Benjamin until Mike bursts in and shoots everyone but Cameron. He engages in a fistfight with Cameron and lets him know that no matter how many times enemies try to attack America, they'll still be there in 1,000 years. Cameron manages to make a run for it. As Mike and Benjamin try to make their way out, they realize they're trapped. Mike orders the Delta team leader to blow the place up. Mike takes Ben, and they jump down a shaft as the place goes up in flames, killing Cameron and the surviving terrorists. The Delta team finds Mike and Ben and reports to the staff that they're alive. The whole team celebrates their president's life. Meanwhile, Jax catches up with the mole, John, who caused the chaos. She sees him trying to flee the country. He tells her he's doing it to teach America a lesson and tells Jax to come with him. She tells him to get on the floor. When he hesitates, she angrily shoots him. Trumbull calls Barkawi to let him know that he's lost. Barkawi tells the VP the war won't end. Trumbull tells him to look out his window. Another drone strike is launched against Barkawi, and this time, he's taken out for good alongside his men. It's been 2 weeks since the incident. A new government has been installed in Britain, and the city has begun to rebuild. Mike returns home to Washington to his wife and newborn. He has taken time off work, though his wife thinks it's the president who insisted he took time off. Later that day, he looks at the letter of resignation to Benjamin that he had previously written. On TV, Trumbull speaks regarding the recent events, leaving an inspiring message saying, "We owe it to our children and great-grandchild to engage in the world." This convinces Mike to delete the letter. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. I would also appreciate a comment because it helps like you can't even imagine. It's a new channel and every bit of support counts.